It is now 9 a.m. Welcome back to Weekend Express. Time to take a look at what's making headlines on the dailies this morning. And in studio for this conversation, I have lawyers Nelson Havi and Dr. Alutalala Mukwana. I will also later on be joined by Charity Kathambi, Member of Parliament Njoro. Many thanks for joining us, gentlemen, in studio. Let's first begin with what's making headlines on the Standard newspaper. And this is something that has taken the country by storm. On the front page there, the war within. Inside the IEBC boiler room. And we'll get to the words being used by the media in describing this. But on the front page of the Standard here, it says, a Tower of Babel, open hostility, backstabbing, threatening calls, and night visits to commissioners paint a picture of a commission under siege from internal and external forces. So this is a story that continues on page 4 and 5 of the paper. But of course, beginning with the letter that Chebukati, IEBC Chair Chebukati sent to Ezra Chiloba. And if you've looked at the contents of that letter, let's begin with you, Havi. What do you make of that letter?
It is a realization on the part of IEBC Chairman Wafula Chebukati that something wrong has happened within the IEBC, having listened to the proceedings before the Supreme Court. And I think Chebukati, like the Supreme Court before him, quote unquote, wants to redeem himself. But even in his quest for redemption, there are those within his midst who appear to be so infiltrated by certain elements that they do not want the truth to come out. Look, there are many who are still bickering that why don't we wait for the final determination by the Supreme Court to interrogate the bona fides of the 12 questions that have been posed by Wafula Chebukati to Ezra Chiloba.
Right.
But I think that is an exercise in intellectual idleness because the proceedings before the Supreme Court were held in public in open daylight or sometimes at night. But we're able to see in actual fact how the 12 issues that have prompted Wafula Chebukati to make this inquiry were arrived at. And towards the end of yesterday, we saw Raila Odinga mention that certain commissioners had been threatened, their security had been withdrawn. And this appears to be something that has permeated the functions of all independent commissions in Kenya, with the result that despite the fact that they're supposed to be dependent within the Constitution, they keep on being interfered with by the executive with a predetermined course intended to benefit them. And this is a very worrying situation, bearing in mind that the IEBC is the body that is mandated with a very Herculean task of oversighting the popular will of the people of Kenya insofar as it comes to the election of their leaders. It's of great concern, and I think it is high time that whoever is interfering with the IEBC, and I think it's now quite clear, it's not something that we should shy to talk about. If the Supreme Court said that the election was stolen through a process that was not proper, this process was oversighted by the IEBC, it is only the beneficiary who is culpable for what we may now see as this interference.
Right, but then the question is, who is interfering with the IEBC? Because on the front page of the Standard here, we have President Uhuru Kenyatta saying IEBC is an independent commission. You're not supposed to take instructions from me and certainly not from Raila Odinga. Prepare for the elections so Kenyans can once again exercise their democratic right. But before we get to that, let's just take a look at some of the contents of that letter and the 12 questions that Wafula Chebukati wanted answers to. And I'll begin with the last one here. Wafula Chebukati asking Ezra Chiloba to explain why the GPRS in the KM system and geofencing features were switched off 2 days, or is it 3 days before the election, as well as explaining why more than 600 polling stations had an equal number of rejected votes vis-a-vis the registered number of voters in those areas. Dr. Mukwana, what do you make of the contents of this letter?
Thanks, Michelle. First of all, thank you for hosting us. And two, I would like to begin by thanking the Kenyans out there who have exerted a lot of restraint, who have kept their peace, despite the very heightened and not very peaceful actions by some of our politicians, which actually border on incitement. And I'm really looking forward to see what the Honorable Ole Kaparo's commission is going to do about this, because clearly the politicians are again taking us into the war drums. I want to begin, when I respond to your question, I want to begin by quoting, paraphrasing what Counsel Peter Wanyama said during the Supreme Court hearing in defense of Mr. Chebukati. He said that even if anomalies were detected, even if there were problems in the process, the law does not give his client, that is Chebukati, any room to change anything except to sign.
Right.
And that if there is anything that can be done, that can only be done by the petition, by the court. Moving forward, my take is that indeed Chebukati knew that there was a problem, but that his hands were tied. Now, these hands being tied can be seen in two ways. One, either legally, as his lawyer said, or by the interests that are now holding IEBC hostage.
Right.
Now, do not forget that all these commissioners, independent, yes, on paper, but they all owe their allegiance to political forces, political parties of the day, be it NASA, be it Jubilee. So this independence is a test, but the truth of the matter is that these commissioners owe their positions to these same politicians who are feuding now. So take it or leave it, it takes great loyalty and personal sacrifice to stand and say, yes, you gave me this position, but please don't make phone calls. I'm independent.
I'm independent. All right, let me take this opportunity now to introduce Charity Kathambi, who is Honorable Charity Kathambi, who is a Member of Parliament for Njoro. Many thanks for joining us on Weekend Express. So, of course, we're discussing the wars within the IEBC. What do you make of that letter by Chiloba? Is this an IEBC chairman who is looking to vindicate himself? Because even looking at that letter that he sent to Ezra Chiloba, we've seen 5 commissioners already coming out and denouncing that letter, saying we were not consulted when the, Chebukati was writing this letter. What do you make of those developments?
Thank you so much for hosting me. What I would like to say, the issues of IEBC, no matter what is going around every corner, IEBC is an independent constitutional commission. Therefore, the bitter fact Chebukati should carry, the big responsibility is upon him. He should be ready to remember that he is answerable to Kenyans. Therefore, the final position about the IEBC issue lies in his hands. He should know that he was granted that position to do his work without accepting any pressure. He should remember that he accepted the position so that he could feel and he could act according to what is requested of him.
Right.
Therefore, as IEBC, let him stand firm, let him make his house in order, because what is important to Kenyans, it is not the road issues we are seeing, but you want a orderly house from IEBC.
And speaking of their independence, let me come to you, Harvey. How independent is this institution as we speak? Because one hand, Wafula Chebukati writes that letter. On the other hand, 5 commissioners come out and say, we were not consulted in this letter. Among those 5 commissioners was Paul Kurgat, who an hour later came and said, wait, my signature was on that memo written by the 5 commissioners denouncing this letter, but I was not part of those 5 commissioners. I did not sign this memo. An hour later, he comes back and denounces his statement and saying, well, I was actually part of the 5 commissioners who signed this memo. Does this validate what Raila Odinga has been saying, that IEBC commissioners are being intimidated, some of their security being withdrawn to stop them from making right some of the wrongs that have occurred during the August 8th elections?
Now, as regards the latter memo, we really don't know now what to believe.
Right.
It is reminiscent of the famous statement by President Bill Clinton, deny, deny, deny. So you don't know which of the earlier 2 have been denied. But look, the independent commissions within the Constitution were designed to function with the commissioners on one hand, oversighting the larger role of leadership, and with the Secretariat undertaking the day-to-day accounting and administrative duties. But has that been the case? No, it's not been the case. Let me give you a very perfect example. Look at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, whose commissioners and chairs have been replaced almost like diapers. And the frequency with which they're being replaced is so high But what about the Secretariat? It has maintained its existence for a considerable period of time, and the Secretariat always seems to side with a particular position that has been taken by the government of the day. Now, just oppose this to the position of the IEBC, and you begin to see commissioners and the chair have always been removed at a very high frequency, but the Secretariat has been maintained for a long period of time. Right. And if you have to check some of those individuals who are alleged to have the highest measure of culpability, they have been there from the time of Kivuitu. And when Chairman Chebukati came out and said he wants things to be done in a particular way, his statement was this: we came into office about 8 months ago. We inherited a Secretariat that we had no control over, and one that didn't seem to take instructions from us. If one required any admission that there was interference and this institution was not as independent as it ought to be within the Constitution, then that was a very brazen statement from the chair. And then look, within a few days, after the chairman has indicated, I've come up with a body of officers who, in my view, are better placed to undertake the election on the 17th of August. The Jubilee administration, through the leader of their party, comes in and says, no, those individuals are partisan. Now, that statement of itself indicates that there are individuals who know who in IEBC can be pliable, who in IEBC can toe the line. And when it comes to the issue of certain commissioners taking a position divergent from that of the chairman, it is a clear indicator that this institution has been infested and it cannot have any fidelity of independence. And if anything is to go by, what came out of the declaration on 11th of August is a clear indicator that somebody outside infiltrated the IEBC, commanded the IEBC to come up with a particular desired outcome against the popular will of the people of Kenya. So we should not bicker and say that it's all politicians who are interfering with the IEBC. Indicate to us to what extent has the NASA coalition interfered with the IEBC. You'll not be able to see any scintilla of evidence. But if you go back and see the footprints of what Jubilee have done in IEBC, it's all over. All
right. And of course, that letter by Wafula Chebukati, if it is anything to go by, then a lot of irregularities occurred. In this, this question is coming from the chair of the commission, again, raising a lot of credibility. So it is something to go by, according to you, Dr. Bukwana. But the 5 commissioners have already said, some of what is contained in that letter, some of those questions are misguided, and they may misguide Kenyans as well. So the question is this a commission that can be trusted to meticulously prepare a fresh election on the 17th of October?
Thanks, Michelle. In our last show, I said that the only solution to this problem, and now it is even exacerbated with this, what you are now calling the tower within...
The Tower of Babel.
The Tower of Babel.
Right.
My plea was that going forward, what will save us where we have reached is consultation, consultation, consultation. These IEBC commissioners were put in office, yes, through the various legislative organs, but at the end of the day, it was a political process. That is why we have commissioners there who clearly, as my learned colleague says, appear to answer to one side of the political divide. And there are others who, again, as the Jubilee politicians have said, they are amenable to NASA machinations.
Right.
Until today, and I said in our previous shows, Uhuru Kenyatta has appeared very innocent and really the victim of all this. And I say that the court did not say anything to show that the third respondent, that is Uhuru Kenyatta, did anything that led to this problem. However, with this Chebukati memo, this really shifts the position. Because what Chebukati memo indicates is that one Davis Chirchir, who was the chief agent, actually gained access into the server and made changes. Now, let's not say that this memo, if it is not true or if it is true. This memo is the contents are very grave. Wafula Chebukati is not insane. He's a lawyer for information, so he understands ramifications of any statement made and attributed to him. Over 24 hours since then, 24 or 48 hours now, he has not come up and said, no, it is not attributable to me. In my view, what Chebukati seems to be doing is actually throwing this into the public domain, and hopefully so that the public court can come to his rescue. Because he's a besieged man.
Right.
You can see that out of the 5 who issued the counter memo, Kurgat, on his own volition, and that time truthfully says, hey, wait a minute, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't sign it, let's use internal mechanism. Afterwards, he comes and says, hey, wait a minute, I was in. That shows you that the IEBC is now held at hostage. And whether we like it or not, IEBC will not redeem itself until the 2 players, that is Jubilee and NASA, come together and agree, hey, guys, let's hold a ceasefire. Finally, I said here that President Uhuru Kenyatta is a wonderful person, as a person. But I also said that it is not enough. You have to identify with the people who are around you. So whereas he has rightfully said here that IEBC is an independent commission, you are not supposed to take instructions from me and certainly not from Raila, I would have expected him to go further and told Moses Kuria similarly, and told his people similarly. And also Honorable Raila Odinga, I would expect him to say that and tell his people that, look, do not throw barbs at IEBC. Whatever has been said has to be sorted, and we'll sort that in a meeting.
All right, and of course, we've seen what Raila Odinga has to say, still on the front page. He says, our team will be ready to meet with the IEBC when it is ready. But of course, I will attend if the Jubilee candidate also attends. I am ready for any discussion since the commission is in a grave situation. And in light of these developments at the IEBC, we've had Raila Odinga now ask for the resignation of President Uhuru Kenyatta, a move that has received a lot of criticism from the Jubilee side. Let's first listen in to what Raila Odinga had to say. One of the respondents there was one Aiden Duale saying this is a dream that will never happen. I just want to get your thoughts on this in just a moment, but let's listen in now to what Raila Odinga had to say.
The government. So, I mean, just must be from the authorities. The securities have been withdrawn.
As Jubilee, we are not interested between the war going on, the sideshows that is taking place between the chair and his commissioners and the secretariat. The leaking of documents, the leaking of memos.
The chairman himself is confirming that there was a lot of mess in the last election. So we are just stating that it is important for the CEO to also answer to those queries that have been raised. The chairman has shown that he doesn't have confidence in him. He is unable to answer the queries that have been raised by the chair. So obviously the first thing to do is step aside and allow a process which will be free and fair.
All right, so that's what Raila Odinga had to say, and of course being followed up there by members of parliament from the Jubilee side. That is about the war within the IEBC. We'll be getting to what Raila Odinga said about the resignation of President Uhuru Kenyatta. But Honorable Katambi, do you make anything? What are your thoughts, first of all, on Raila Odinga asking the president to resign?
I think that impossibility. Another thing I would like to mention is the issues we are talking about IEBC. Is it are they able to conduct the fair and the free elections?
Right.
The bitter answer is yes. Actually, there was free and fair elections in the entire country. The issue has only arisen with one position of the presidential candidate. But the rest of the other positions, like the governors, the senators, the MPs, the MCAs, it is okay. Therefore, what is making some of us wonder is if we are agreeing that it was free and fair for other candidates, and we today want to cheat one another that the IEBC cannot conduct the issues of elections fairly, I think it would be wrong.
Right.
The IEBC is capable. I think the issue is let us give them the time, let them prepare, and let NASA, by the way, stop being...
Michelle.
Yeah.
Maybe just to come back to you,
yes.
Looking at the internal divisions that are now playing out, not being said by Jubilee, not being said by NASA,
yes.
This is coming out from within the commission itself. Judging from the letter by Wafula Chebukati, judging from the memo from the 5 commissioners, do you still hold that IEBC held a free, fair and credible election?
Actually, it was free and fair. I stand on that.
Right.
Another thing, I'm commenting on that issue about the wrangles within IEBC. They have a big responsibility. It is now their time to make their house in order so that we conduct another elections. On 17th, Jubilee is fully prepared to go and vote the way we had previously voted. Yeah.
All right, so let's now listen in to Raila Odinga before I come to you, Dr. Mukwana. He is there asking President Uhuru Kenyatta to resign in light of these developments at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, alleging IEBC did not conduct irregularities on their own volition, but on behalf of the Jubilee Party. Let's listen in.
If our Uhuru Kenyatta, looking at what has transpired now, I would just resign and let this thing go. But trying to impose himself against the will of the people is not right.
The will of the people of Kenya cannot be changed. And we want to prove to the country that it's not the courts that vote.
All right, Dr. Mukwana, let's get your thoughts on that. And especially, just come back to what our Honorable Katambi here seems to feel that IEBC did hold a free, fair and credible election. And she does raise, a credible question. How is it that the election was not fair, for the other positions when it was still the same commission that conducted that election?
A quick one to that one. There are 100 petitions in court. So that's a question for another day. The topic here is about presidential.
Right.
Now, let me say this, Michelle. I think that we Kenyans are in big trouble. And we have come to think that politicians are the ones who have solutions to our problems as a country. With time, we'll realize that they're actually the source of the problems in this country. What I would expect Mheshimiwa to do is to look at that memo and respond to it blow by blow. Rather than engaging in generalities, you have asked a genuine question. With the divisions that we are seeing, this division has come from the chairman, whom Mheshimiwa herself has said he must take responsibility. The buck stops with him, and she said it rightfully so. Now, he is taking responsibility. The buck is stopping with him by saying, hey, guys, we came in as commissioners for only 7 months. With the benefit of the ruling of the court and with the benefit of hindsight, I now think I need to make these changes. They are fighting him again. So which way do you want the commission to go? Let the parties, particularly now the Jubilee, because now they seem to be the one now who are being boxed into the corner, respond to these allegations by the chairman. Now this time they're not from Raila, they're not from anybody else, they're from the chairman,
right.
Blow by blow. For instance, one that touches her party leader directly. Did your party leader's agent, Davis Chirchir, access the server, and did he make the changes? If you cannot answer for him, why haven't you brought him before the public to vindicate himself and say, look, that is not true, I never accessed. Instead, what is now happening with the politicians, they are now not discussing about the real issues. They're just shadowboxing and heightening the tensions in the country. The truth of the matter is that Wafula Chebukati is not an insane man.
Right.
He cannot have issued that memo if there was no reason. So for me, Michelle, let the politicians, just like they have created this crisis, let them come together and resolve this crisis. Without Honorable Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta coming together and saying, guys, yes, we have fought. Some of us may have used ways that are not good. Let us now be sane and solve this problem. If you leave it to Mheshimiwa, this country is going to burn. Listen to what Honorable Dwali is saying. Listen to what Honorable Moses Kure is saying. And listen to the other side also when they say, you will shudder.
All right, and we'll be getting to that, especially because the National Cohesion and Integration Commission has been put on the spot with regard to some of those remarks. But Harvey, 37 days to the election, IEBC seems to be in disarray. What are we likely, to witness as a country? Because initially we've had the opposition saying we will go to the elections on the 17th of October if certain conditions have been met. During the petition at the Supreme Court, one of their questions, one of their requests, so that they get access to the GPRS logs of the different KM systems. From Chebukati's letter there to Chiloba, it appears that that was not possible because the GPRS was switched off 3 days to the elections. Are we likely to see an election in 37 days?
Look, IEBC as an institution is well prepared to conduct this election. The problem is the individuals within the institution. They have been so infiltrated by a key player within the contest that there can never be an objectivity unless and until certain minimum thresholds are met in terms of the other candidate who feels that the ground is not level and that he cannot get a fair outcome. Now, when you take that into account, then you begin to see what are the areas that need to be addressed. For instance, when the Supreme Court said, give them access to the servers, there was a peculiar request that we want to know at what particular point in time the kids were to enable us interrogate if for a fact the Form 34A and Form 34B that appear to be fraudulent emanated from the polling station or the constituency tallying center. And the IEBC refused to do this. And then we saw many of the results that came from those areas were actually not okay. They were fraudulent. And they represented close to about 4 million votes. And then there are about 595 polling stations that did not remit results in the first place. At all. Then a question is asked, on what basis, therefore, did the IEBC declare Uhuru Kenyatta as president? I mean, this is the best confirmation that this was a fraud. And it will be foolhardy for Raila and his supporters to again subject themselves to this gauntlet. The outcome will be predetermined. And if you were to ask me for my honest opinion, I think it is very difficult to get rid of the commissioners of the IEBC. And Jubilee, on its part, will be very happy if a request is made for the removal of these commissioners, because it will take a minimum of 6 months and a maximum of 1 year, within which time they will continue enjoying the so-called tyranny of majority in the National Assembly, in the governors, and in the Senate. So it won't happen. But it is quite apparent that the people who hold the highest responsibility for this malfeasance is the Secretariat. Chiloba, Kasait, Muhati, Tororei, and many of those individuals. This can be fired within a second. It's not a big deal. Let them be fired. Let other individuals who have capacity to oversight this role be hired. And then let's go to the returning officer, the presiding officer at the polling stations. We saw so many of these individuals who oversighted the election in Western Kenya and Nyanza were people that were mined from the Jubilee strongholds with a predetermined direction on how to manipulate the results in those areas. I think Raila should demand that these people be kicked out of this area. They should not even be allowed to step foot in Western Kenya or in Nyanza. Now, how did we used to do elections before? Most of these election officials used to be picked from the education system. The elections are being done in schools. Pick school heads, pick the teachers there, because these come from that locality. The possibility that they'll be manipulated against the popular will of the locality is very minimal. And it's very easy to go through the chain of command in oversighting the manner in which these individuals will be able to undertake this election. But to say that those returning officers, presiding officers, is selectively picked for a particular purpose and taken to the strongholds of the opposition to manipulate the results, that should not happen.
Let me correct you.
I think that's
Before Mheshimiwa picks it up, let me tell you why I agree with Wakili on the issue that Honorable Raila should not go into this election as currently, as the situation is now. Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta said in one of his campaigns that kila wakati unalia umeibiwa. Kila wakati unalia umeibiwa. Na hiyo suibe. You know, that you're always complaining that your votes have been stolen. If people have been stealing from you for the 4th time, then who is the problem? Why don't you steal also? Now, if Raila were to go into this election with this IEBC as currently constituted, he'll be putting his neck on the chopping board. That's for sure. And rightfully so, because you cannot go into an election when you know very well that you're going again to start crying. So he's better off saying, no, I'm not going in. And believe you me, if you have read the history of Raila politics, Raila is digging in. He has dug in. He'll not move. Before, on the last one, the GPRS, even if all the other claims fell, can the side that is now saying that the memo doesn't make sense, can someone explain to Kenyans why the GPRS was switched off? For those who do not know what the GPRS is, it's in layman's language. It will help anyone know where the Kim's kit was. NASA's claim has been that ungazetted polling centers were used. When the GPRS is switched off, it lends credence to that claim. That yes, there were so many ungazetted polling stations. The Kims were everywhere, some were in hotels in Nairobi, as Raila has claimed, and that is why the GPRS was switched off. Look, Mugala muwe, lakini haki yake mpe. Raila may be a devil, but on this one, you'll kill him. He'll not budge.
So we'll come back to what changes then we're expecting to see within the IEBC. But Honorable Katambi, you had something to say there?
Yeah, I wanted to comment on the issues my colleague has raised, that President Uhuru team manipulated votes in some opposition stronghold. It's a very pathetic statement.
Myself or my...
relax, my friend.
No, clarification.
The issue is very simple.
You can't use the word pathetic on national TV.
Actually, no, it was a bad statement when someone says that people who are supporters of Jubilee were sent in opposition regions, which are the strongholds of oppositions, so that they manipulate the vote. It's sorrowful to hear that, but my position on that is this. There were no votes which were stolen. Kenyans voted, and the Kenyans made a decision. And I'm saying on this TV, wait on 17th. What is going to happen in this country? You remember this thing. Kenyans are going to vote for the President Uhuru more than 70 plus, not 54 plus, as we had on 8th. The issues of Chiri issue. I cannot comment on that because what I know, if you are saying Chiri interfered with the server, I think it could have interfered. I think the interference could have affected every position which was being vied in this country. Therefore, let us not put our minds on only one candidate.
Did he or did he not, Mheshimiwa?
He did not.
Help Kenyans.
He did not. He did not. What happened in the country on 8th, Kenyans woke up, they knew the president they wanted, and they voted the president Uhuru.
All right.
Chapter closed.
Okay. All right, so let's take a short break here on a Weekend Express. This is a conversation that will continue after the break as we continue taking a look at what else is making headlines on the dailies this morning. Do stay with us. Remember, you can also interact with us on social media. The hashtag is Weekend Express KTN. You can also tweet me directly at Michelle Ngele. We'll be sampling your thoughts when we come back. Do stay with us.